Okay, so we're going to continue Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 10, and it's text 9. Okay, second canto, chapter 10, text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayana Namaskritya Naram Java Naruttamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayadhiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer his obeisances to Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So we can do word for word. Ekam,
Ekam,
ekatara,
Ekatara,
abhave,
Abhave,
yada,
Yada,
na,
Na,
upalabhamahe,
Upalabhamahe,
Ritayam,
Vidayam,
Tatra,
Tatra,
Ya,
Ya,
Veda,
Veda,
Sa,
Sa,
Atma,
Atma,
Sva,
Sva,
Ashraya,
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 Ekam ekatara bhavi,
Ekamekatara Bhave,
Yada nupalabhamahe,
Yadanopalabhamahe,
Ritayam Tatra Yo Veda,
Tritayam Tatrayo Veda,
Sa Atma Svashraya Shraya,
Sātma Svāshaya Shaya,
Ekam ekatara bhavi,
Ekamekatara Bhave,
Yada nupalabhamahe,
Yadanopalabhamahe,
Ritayam Tatra Yo Veda,
Tritayam Tatrayo Veda,
Atma Svashraya Shraya,
Sātma Svāshaya Shaya,
Ekam ekatara bhavi,
Ekamekatara Bhave,
Yada nupalabhamahe,
Yadanopalabhamahe,
Ritayam Tatra Yo Veda,
Tritayam Tatrayo Veda,
Atma Svashraya Shraya,
Sātma Svāshaya Shaya, Ekamekatara Bhave,
Ekam ekatara bhavi,
Yadanopalabhamahe,
Nupalabhamahe,
Tritayam Tatrayo Veda,
Ritayam Tatra Yo Veda,
Sātma Svāshaya Shaya,
Atma Svashraya Shaya.
Ekamekatara Bhave, Yadanopalabhamahe, Tritayam Tatrayo Veda, Sātma Svāshaya Shaya,
Ekamekatara bhave,
Ekamikatara bhave.
Yadano palabamahe.
Yadano palabamahe.
Sritayam tatra yo veda.
Tritayam tatra yo veda.
Satma sparshaya shraya.
Satma swashraya shraya.
Ekamika Talavave Yadano Parabamahe
Yadano palabamahe.
Itayam Tatra Yoveda
Tritayam tatra yo veda.
Atma Swashraya Shrayaha
Satma swashraya shraya.
Ekamika Talavave
Yadano Palabamahe
Yadano Parabamahe
Tritayam Tatrayo Veda
Itayam Tatra Yovedam
Sa'atma Swashraya Shraya
Swaatma Swashraya Shrayaha
Ekamikata bhave
Ekamikatara bhave.
Yadano palabamahe
Yadano palabamahe.
Tritayam tatrayo veda
Tritayam tatra yo veda.
Atma svashraya shraya
Satma swashraya shraya.
Anyone else? Okay, ekam,
Ekam.
one.
One.
Ekatara,
Ekatara.
another.
Another.
Abhave,
Abhave.
in the absence of.
In the absence of.
Yada,
Yada.
because.
Because.
Na,
Na.
does not.
Does not.
Upalabamahi,
Upalabamahe.
perceptible.
Perceptible.
Tritayam,
Tritayam.
in three stages.
In three stages.
Tatra,
Tatra.
there.
There.
Ya,
Ya.
the one.
One.
Veda,
Veda.
who knows.
Knows.
Sa,
Sa.
he.
He.
Atma,
Atma.
the Supersoul.
The Supersoul.
Sva,
Sva.
own.
Om.
Ashraya,
Ashraya.
shelter.
Shelter.
Ashraya,
Ashraya.
of the shelter.
Of the shelter.
So the translation, all three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. The purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are innumerable living entities, one dependent on the other, in the relationship of the controlled and the controller. But without the medium of perception, no one can know or understand who is the controlled and who is the controller. For example, the sun controls the power of our vision. We can see the sun because the sun has its body, and the sunlight is useful only because we have eyes. Without our having eyes, the sunlight is useless, and without sunlight, the eyes are useless. Thus they are interdependent, and none of them is independent. Therefore, the natural question arises concerning who made them interdependent. The one who has made such a relationship of interdependence must be ultimately completely independent. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ultimate source of all interdependent objectives is the complete independent subject. This ultimate source of all interdependence is the Supreme Truth, or Paramatma, the Supersoul who is not dependent on anything else. He is Svashrayashaya. He is only dependent on himself, and thus he is the supreme shelter of everything. Although Paramatma and Brahman are subordinate to Bhagavan because Bhagavan is Purushottama, or the super person, he is the source of the Supersoul also. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, Lord Krishna says that he is the Purushottama and the source of everything. And now my screen is frozen. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, Lord Krishna says that he is the Purushottama and the source of everything, and thus it is concluded that Sri Krishna is the ultimate source and shelter of all entities, including the Supersoul and the Supreme Brahman. Even accepting that there is no difference between the Supersoul and the individual soul is dependent on the Supersoul for being liberated from the illusion of material energy. The individual is under the clutches of illusory energy, and therefore, although qualitatively one with the Supersoul, he is under the illusion of identifying himself with matter. And to get out of this illusory conception of factual life, the individual soul has to depend on the Supersoul to be recognized as one with him. In that sense, also, the Supersoul is the supreme shelter, and there is no doubt about it. The individual living entity, the Jiva, is always dependent on the Supersoul, Paramatma, because the individual soul forgets his spiritual identity, whereas the Supersoul, Paramatma, does not forget his transcendental position. In the Bhagavad Gita, these separate positions of the Jivatma and the Paramatma are specifically mentioned. In the 4th chapter, Arjuna, the Jiva soul, is represented as forgetful of many, many previous births. But the Lord, the Supersoul, is not forgetful. The Lord even remembers when he taught the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some billions of years before. The Lord can remember such millions and billions of years as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7:26 as follows. Vidaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna Bhavishyani Chakutani Mantu Vedana Kashtana. The Lord, in his eternal blissful body of knowledge, is fully aware of all that happened in the past, that which is going on at the present, and also what will happen in the future. But in spite of his being the shelter of both the Paramatma and Brahman, persons with a poor fund of knowledge are unable to understand him as he is. The propaganda of the identity of cosmic consciousness with the consciousness of individual living entities is completely misleading, because even such a person or individual soul as Arjuna could not remember his past deeds, although he is always with the Lord. And what can the tiny, ordinary man, falsely claiming to be one with the cosmic consciousness, know about his past, present, and future? Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saha Kana Raghunyatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanjana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva ja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So, reciting those mantras, I start to feel nervous and like connecting with a sense of, what can I tell you? This verse, as Dhira Govinda yesterday said, it's not ABC. I'm learning the ABC, so this is quite, something else. So I will endeavor and give my best and hope it's valuable for you, what I share. So first I want to greet everyone. So I can see there with Dhira Govinda, Drew and Brielle and Dhira Govinda and Krishna and Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu, Malini with Ladini. I don't know if anyone else is there. And George, maybe Danielle or Saraswati, Kim, Gajendra, Kelly, Christine, and Rukmini. Hare Krishna. So yesterday, we read this verse about the Adhyatmic person and the Adidaivik person and the Adibhotik person. And I thought about it a lot. And so what I understood is that there are three aspects, like 3 powers, 3 abilities, 3 principles. And they are all dependent on each other. Prabhupada gives the example in the purport, like the sunlight and the seeing, it's dependent on each other. Like if there's no sunlight, there's no point in looking because I won't see. So they're all dependent on each other. And we all, what I understand is that we all have these abilities or principles in a very limited way. Like, so Adhyatmic is the person possessing senses. So we have senses, and in our material senses, they are very limited. They are very faulty. And we have control over our senses, having the controlling person, that's the Adidaivik person. We have some control over our senses, some tiny control, like, and then in a bigger sense, there's the demigods, they're controlling our senses. And we also have the Adibhotik aspect, which is the power to distinguish. Srila Prabhupada calls it the medium, so the ability to distinguish. And also it's explained that ultimately only Supersoul can actually make distinctions. Supersoul has the overview of not just my life and my karma, but the life and karma of everyone in the material realm. And the Supersoul, Paramatma, has the overview. And so Supersoul is, what I understand here, the power that can distinguish what entangles me further and what will set me free to serve with love and devotion. Hare Krishna. Oh. So it seems quite wise that we learn to hear the guidance of Supersoul, that we learn to distinguish and understand how is Supersoul guiding us, that we learn to trust that voice, that guidance, and also have the courage or the intelligence or the discipline or the faith or whatever to follow it. Prabhupada says there is no doubt Supersoul is the supreme shelter. So what I was thinking of, what came to me was that actually we are always with Krishna, and that's what Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is about. That there is no place where Krishna is not, either he's not always there as Krishna with the blue cowherd boy with the peacock feather, but he's there in his energies in different aspects. So reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can understand how, or we can hear how Krishna, God, enters the cosmic manifestation, the material manifestation, how he expands as Supersoul, as Paramatma, and all of that is explained, and it gives the picture that actually it's not possible to be disconnected from God, to be away from God. So we are always with God, with Krishna in some form, and yet we are not aware of it because we've forgotten who Krishna is, and we've forgotten what he is like. And we hear here that Paramatma does not forget, never forgets. Like for God, there is no past or present, future. It all exists at the same time. And we hear that there's the verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 26. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani acharjuna vavishyani chagutani mantu vedana kashchana. So Prabhupada quotes that, and it's translated as, "O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, and all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows." So Krishna explains it here, he summarizes it. Yeah, we don't, it's not that no one knows Krishna, but most of us here in the material world, we don't know Krishna. Or we don't know that what we know is Krishna, or part of Krishna, or an energy of Krishna. So I was having a conversation with my husband yesterday about chanting. I was complaining about my chanting and how my mind doesn't want to stay with the mantra and goes, it's a theme for me. And then he responded, and what I got in that conversation is that actually, you know, like to say I'm not with Krishna just because my mind goes elsewhere, it's actually not true. It's only like the mind is just one part of me. And if my mind is not with Krishna, I am not my mind. So I'm still associating with the holy name, and the holy name is said to be non-different than God, non-different than Krishna. So that illustrated for me how limited my view is, and how I am so like insisting that I am separate from Krishna. So to hear Paramatma, the guidance of Supersoul, seems to be intelligent, because he has the overview and he can guide us to take decisions that don't entangle us further, or that free us, or that help us, or that engage us in service to God. So how do we hear that guidance? And it's I think a big part, or a big aspect of it, is learning to distinguish, to make distinctions, so to that we apply this very limited adibotic ability that we have, this medium of distinction, and make the distinctions, and make choices that are intelligent in the sense that the choices we make, they help us purify our intelligence. And intelligence, if we look at the chariot analogy, there's the chariot, and the passenger is us, it's the jiva soul, And then there's the driver, and that's the intelligence. And the intelligence holds the reins. That's the mind, our thoughts. And then there are the horses, the senses. And so it's actually that the driver has a very important role to control the mind and the senses, and to take the chariot where the passenger wants to go. And in order for the driver to know where the passenger wants to go, the passenger needs to express, this is where I want to go. And so, yeah, the soul, the passenger needs to wake up. Wake up the passenger and express, where do you want to go? Where do I want to go? And what I understand is that Srimad Bhagavatam helps us. It helps the passenger wake up to where he wants to go. He actually, not just where he wants to go, first of all, also wake up the passenger to understand where he is sitting, how he's feeling, what he's experiencing, what that experience is like. And we can understand from Srimad Bhagavatam, and I would say also many of us from our own experience. That's why we're here. We want to go back to God. We want to love God. We want to serve God, learn how to do that. Because we see that we're not doing it most of the time. I'm not doing it most of the time. So reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it purifies our intelligence, kind of clears the channel, and helps us hear the guidance of Supersoul. So in this purport, there's a lot of information I don't understand, but this stood out for me, Supersoul, and learning to hear the guidance of Supersoul. And also the Supersoul is non-different to the source in the message it sends and what the intention is. So we want to learn. I want to learn who is Supersoul and what is the source of it. What is that person like? What are the intentions of that person? Where does he want to guide me? How does that person care for me? How does that person love? What does that look like? What does it feel like? What does it create? And it's in the prayer that St. Francis, he has this prayer, and he prays to Lord Jesus, make me an instrument of thy peace. And thy peace. He speaks, okay, I want to be an instrument of God's peace. And what is God's peace? I very soon came to this resistance of, okay, peace. How do we create peace? How do we create equality? What is justice? And on a material platform, there is no chance for peace or justice or equality. We're all different. There's people who have lots of sun and people have no sun. People are stuck in countries with wars and others not. And some kids have parents who help them learn maths and do their homework, and others not. And some have better abilities to create wonderful furnitures and others not. So there is no equality. Some people have lots, like too much food, overflood of food, and others have scarcity. So on a material platform, there's no chance, there's no possibility for equality. And on a spiritual platform, there is possibility of peace and justice. So Supersoul is in our heart. That's how it's described. Paramatma is sitting in our heart. It accompanies.
You're open.
No.
Malini, you're. Thank you. So Paramatma is described as sitting in our heart next to Jiva, next to us. And it's observing us, he, Supersoul, he, I don't know, he, she, it, she, he is observing us, and he hears our desires, and then coordinates with the universe, with the demigods, so that our desires are fulfilled. And it's described that Supersoul, Paramatma, is detached, and there's this analogy of the two birds in the tree. And one bird is eating the fruit, and the other bird is observing the bird who's eating the fruit. So that's us and Paramatma. Paramatma is detached. Paramatma is non-judgmental. And it actually seems to help us fulfill all desires, also desires to cause harm. Paramatma arranges that those desires are fulfilled. And it all happens in the context of material nature, and material nature has laws. There are laws we know, like the law of gravity. There are other laws of karma, or there's a saying in German, what we call into the forest comes back to us. And material nature is created in a way that we learn when we transgress the laws of God or the laws of love. And how we know is we suffer, we feel pain. And suffering is a possibility, an opportunity. Suffering is an opportunity to wake up. I just spoke with my sister the other day about the pandemic and why, what's the bigger reason of it. And she said, I think it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for all of us. And I agree. Like, I made a commitment to read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly on a daily basis, just around the time when the pandemic started. And it woke me up, like doing both, like observing the world, what's happening to me, and what I was reading in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was reading about how in our time the blind lead the blind, and I could see there are so many theories and opinions and suggestions why the pandemic is here and what to do, and everyone says, I know what to do. And I thought, well, I don't know I don't know what is true. And just like the blind leading the blind. Or I was reading about how the time we live in, it will bring natural disasters, bugs, illness, sickness. And we can see right now in the world, there's so many natural disasters. Here in Switzerland, we never had we had hardly any sun, and so much rain, and so many floods, and streets washed away. And so I see it's happening. So it's suffering wakes us up, and also Srimad Bhagavatam, reading it with attention and faith and openness, wakes us up. And then, well, I mentioned Srimad Bhagavatam wakes us up. If we just look at, when I was speaking with my sister about waking up, I was thinking, well, waking up is not enough. Just to wake up and understand where I am, and it's a place of suffering and misery, and I don't have much control. If I'm honest, I have very, very little control. So just waking up to that, it's not enough. It's actually even more miserable. So it also takes the mercy of a pure devotee, or of I don't know if the person needs to be pure, someone who knows God, to give a broader perspective, to give a broader understanding. Well, it's not just wake up to see how you're suffering. It's also wake up to who you are as a spirit soul, as as an entity that's by nature blissful and joyful and full of knowledge and eternal. So it's like a prisoner in a prison might get, might probably becomes aware, okay, now I'm in a place where I have very little freedom. I'm stuck. It's miserable. And then, and now what? That understanding is not going to bring the person very far. And then he might come to an understanding, okay, I did some damage. I harmed someone, and that's the result. And still it's like, and now what? So it takes like for someone to come, a teacher, a preacher, someone with a broader perspective, with knowledge, with intelligence, and also the intelligence to explain in a way that the prisoner can understand and connect. Oh, I did this and this, and that's why I'm in prison. And for that, the prisoner also learns what he can do to get out of prison, maybe sooner than the sentence says. And also information, training how to stay out of prison. So this desire to go back to God, it needs to be awakened in order for the driver to take the decisions that lead us back to God, back to freedom, back to bliss. And I can see in myself testing all the time, very carefully. Can I trust that God? So yeah, it's like waking up is like the beginning. Waking up, oh, I'm in a prison, or I'm in a chariot that goes in all wild directions. So I wake up to that, and wake up to where I really want to go, and wake up to what that place is that I desire to go, and where the guidance is, which guidance to trust. So still the question is there, if we like follow the guidance here, the instruction here, how do we hear Supersoul? There's so many voices inside. I can see in myself when I take decisions, so many different voices, and I can go from feeling clear, this is what I'll do, and 2 hours later I'm very clear, I know this is what I'm going to do. So how do we know that what we hear is Supersoul? It's not our mind or our fear or our pride or the voice of our all these different voices. And so what I understand is that if we taking, like, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, reading bona fide spiritual literature, listening, hearing the spiritual master, the instructions, and taking the example of saints, that's the same. They send the same message as Supersoul sends. So we could go and listen there and get understanding, get train ourselves to distinguish the different voices and what they say and what they create, so that we learn to understand, oh, this voice, this knowledge, this intuition, it has the flavor of divine, of the divine. And I have so much appreciation for the morning program. I love the morning program. And I was thinking all the songs that Srila Prabhupada chose to put in the morning program, there's so much information there for us to help us understand what is coming from Krishna. Just when we sing in the samsara prayers, Sakshataritina samasta shastra Uktastata bhagateva sattvi kintu praborya priyameva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. So in this line, in this verse, we get the information that we can worship the Guru as much as the Lord, because he's a confidential, he's an intimate servant of God. And it's not that we should worship the spiritual master as if he is God. He is not God. But Prabhupada explains it that Guru is the worshipping God. So we worship the Guru because of his worship to Krishna. We worship his worship and his devotion and his service. And Prabhupada says, and God is the worshipable God. So there's instruction in that, just in that line, by worshiping the spiritual master and worshiping, letting us take inspiration from how the spiritual master worships God and serves God, and learn from that and see how we can apply that in our own lives. And to take guidance and instructions from the spiritual master, it's with Srila Prabhupada, it seems very clear and very simple in some ways. It's simple. So his main instruction is chant at least 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulative principles. And that's very straightforward. And so how does that help for day-to-day decisions, like the decision what to cook or which medicine to take, or whether to get vaccinated or not, or where to send the kids to school, or so many we take so many decisions. There is a study about how many decisions teachers need to take in 1 minute, and it's like 40 decisions, so we take so many decisions. Actually, we're taking decisions all the time. Where do we look? What do we think? What do we hear? We're not aware of that we're taking these decisions. So how does this, hearing Shastra, reading Shastra, or following the instructions of the spiritual master, or taking inspiration from saints, how does that help us in our day-to-day decisions? And in my own experience, I'll just share from my own experience, what I get is that it clears my intelligence. So to sing the samsara prayers, for example, or to chant, it clears my intelligence, and it clears my ability to distinguish. It clears it helps me take wiser decisions than I would otherwise take. It helps me to understand where to place my trust, where to get information from, and to come to clarity, and not waste too much time considering, should I do this or that, or there, or go here, or what. So to hear Supersoul, it seems like using that adibotic ability in us and clearing intelligence is a way to go, and it increases maybe the spark of desire that the passenger in the chariot has to go back home, and it can, what I understand, it can create also a fire of desire to go back home to God. And we get so many recipes or guidelines what we can do to increase that fire, to to understand who is that God, who is that Krishna, who created Paramatma that accompanies us wherever we go. He will never leave us. Even if we decide to go to hell, if we decide to become a murderer or a rapist, Paramatma will not leave us. He will just stay. So who is that person? So we have like, I was like thinking on that, meditating on that, all these instructions about association, and more and more, or the longer I am practicing on this path of Bhakti Yoga, I get how important association is. It's it can become, at least for me, very, very challenging to go on. Like all I would say all my ideas of what life is like and what I am like and what the world is like, they get crushed, and all these identifications, like ideas, unconscious, subconscious ideas that gave me some sense of security, they get crushed, and or it gets very intense to experience the experience of life. Dear Govinda was speaking about it yesterday, like when we really wake up, when we stop numbing ourselves and we wake up to the fear of old age or illness or natural disasters, or when we wake up to the human context and all the dangers that are here, and that they're a possibility, they could happen in our lives, they are happening in our lives. It's intense, and so association really helps me. Like this association here really, really helps me. My daughters were complaining the other day about my older daughter. She has her mobile phone, like, so she's 12 and she got her mobile phone, and we discussed about restricting screen time. And so she has an hour screen time, and they were complaining to me, and they said, "Oh, you restrict my screen time to 1 hour, and you spend so many hours in front of your screen." And so I was trying to justify my screen time. So I work, I do coaching sessions, I conduct trainings, and then I also and I noticed how I said, and I spend time with my friends. I get association here, so it's very, very important to me. And in that sense, I'm grateful for computers and internet and screens. And then there's hearing about God, hearing about Shravana, Kirtana, singing Kirtan. An instruction we get, like a recipe, like if you want to know God, you can go ahead and you can do this. You can hear about him, or you can sing about him, or you can worship him or serve him or make him your best friend. And that's going to help you. That's going to help you know God and love God. And then there's, I just randomly chose a few, like giving gifts to other devotees and receiving gifts. It's so, for me, such a joyful experience to be generous and to give gifts. Also to distribute prasadam. It's something we can do if we want. And it's actually, distributing prasadam is quite a mysterious thing for me. I don't really understand with my mind why this is joyful. It is just, I just experience a lot of joy distributing prasadam, and it gives me a purpose. When I go to a family gathering or I'm invited somewhere, I beg them, may I bring something to eat? And that gives me some purpose to go there. And then also we have the suggestion that the gift of deity worship, deities, like God represented in a form for us to put on an altar and to worship. And we can choose all these things, and I see in myself and I observe in others too. The more we know about God and what His love actually is, what unconditional love means, and how this material world, which can cause so much suffering and misery, is actually like a blessing for us who are conditioned. It's like here to wake us up, that this is not home, and this is not eternal home. So I can use my life power, my decision-making power to direct my activities, to take choices, to make priorities, like do first things first, and choose those first things as spiritual practice, to do these things first, to follow guidelines and instructions. One guideline that I'm endeavoring to like translate into my life is the instruction from Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So I'm not really after love of God, I'm after no suffering. That's my aim. So I like this verse a lot. So I can direct my life power there. And I have it's actually quite new for me to this understanding. It might seem strange. I was very clear on big decisions. Okay, I direct my power towards, I don't know, building a coaching practice and not going to public school to teaching. So that's like, I know where I want to put my energy. And to break this down into every day, every hour, I can take those choices. I can make choices that where I invest the energy I have to come closer to God, or to invest my energy to waste my energy, to separate, to move further away, to create something unhealthy. So Srimad Bhagavatam helps us understand where Supersoul is coming from. So where that guidance is coming from, that I don't know if instance, is that the word in English? Instance, the power that can guide us out of entanglement, and to trust that. And we learn about Supersoul, and also the creator of Supersoul, the creator of Paramatma. And it's actually like an exciting time in the year. I am excited about this time. There's Janmashtami coming up tomorrow, and the Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, and then there's so many festivals like Guru Puja and Kartik, the month of Kartik, where we sing Damodarastaka. So they're all opportunities where we can learn about this God, this Krishna, this creator of Paramatma, this guide we get in this life that leads us back home, back to God, out of entanglement. And when we go and hear, we learn that, okay, so Krishna, he has a human-like form, and he does many things that we do. He eats, he sleeps, he mates, defends, he plays, he loves, he fights, he cries. He has a headache. Sometimes Krishna gets a headache. He plays chess. I still don't know who wants to play chess with Krishna, because he will win anyway, but I guess it's fun. He has children and he marries. He does things that we might not want to do, like maybe we don't want to kill demons or steal or marry 16,000 women or more than 16,000 women. So, but there's many things that he does that we do too, or at least we can relate or understand. And also we learn that he protects his devotees. So Arjuna, when he sees Krishna's universal form, he sees he's overwhelmed, and because he sees like, oh, Krishna, He's all the goodness and he's all the evil. Everything is there in Krishna, and that's scary. I imagine that's very scary. And in hearing about Krishna as, you know, the loving God, he protects his devotees. So all the evilness and the ghastliness, it's not for us who take shelter in him. It's for those who are against God or want to be more powerful than God. And we learn all this in the Krishna Leelas and on the festivals, like we celebrated Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day. And I get so much understanding about God in that, and so much relief and trust. Like Nrsingadev, he kills Hiranyakashipu in a very ugly way, and in the whole picture of the whole message of that lila, I also get, well, I don't need to be afraid that he will do this to me when I take shelter of him, when I just, even if I only have a little desire to serve him or to love him or to know him, I'm going to be protected. I'm not going to get to know that side of his, because Krishna, he protects his devotees. He makes distinctions. So, okay, I think I can share the rest too. So I was speaking about the morning program, and how much, actually, preparing for this class, I got so much clarity and deeper appreciation for the morning program and all the instruction that is there. It seems like, I mean, I don't have the ability to judge what is complete and not, but it does feel very complete to me. We sing the Govind, or we hear and sing the Govindam prayers, and just there's this verse from Brahma Samhita where Lord Brahma describes Krishna. Venum kvanantam aravindam malayataksham parhavatam samasitam buddhasundarangam kandarpagoti kamaniya visheshashobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. It's translated that I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with peacock feather, with the figure of beauty, tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness, charming millions of cupids. So there we get a picture, an image of Krishna, a flavor of Krishna. And if we go through the songs, just the first song of the Mangalarati, Samsara Davana Lalita Loka, there we get knowledge. It's like an eye-opener. That actually, yeah, material existence is like a blazing fire. And the spiritual master, with his mercy, he extinguishes that fire. And there's the song of the prayer to Lord Nrsingadev, and just the first part of the song, Namaste Narashingaya Praladaya Dadaini Hiranyakashipu Vakshaha Shilatankana Kalaye, is I offer my obeisances to Lord Nrsinga, who gives joy to Prahlad Maharaj, and whose nails are like chisels on the stone-like chest of the demon Hiranyakashipu. So if I look just at the words and I don't know anything, who is this Nrsingadev, who is this Prahlad, who is this Hiranyakashipu, I'm not getting much information yet. If my curiosity is awakened, who are these personalities? What message do they give to me? What instruction is there? What eye-openers? Then there's so much. I go research who is Lord Nrsingadev, and I come to Krishna. I come to get to understand what is unconditional love. I want to know who is Prahlad Maharaj, and I go and read about him, and I understand. Oh, he's a pure devotee. He gets it. he knows what this place is. He knows He knows the prison, he knows the chariot, and he also knows how to get out of it and stay out of it, or even like be out of it while he's in it. And then there's Hiranyakashipu. And I can go and research who's Hiranyakashipu, and I learn about demonic qualities, or qualities that entangle us, that cause more and more misery and more darkness. And then it just goes on, like the songs in the morning program, Jaya Radha Madhava. I'll read the translation of it. Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Braj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yashoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Braj, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. So just in that we can pick out names, places, and we can go and research, and we learn about God and his love for us, his love for his devotees, his love for the demons also. So there's many more songs. I'm not going to read all of them. Just one more. And that's one of my favorite lines. It's Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Jannara Bandhu. And our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. So also the spiritual master, he's the friend of the devotees. He protects us like a true spiritual master. All the directions that he gives to us, they're all meant for our highest good. So when I hear about such persons, I naturally develop curiosity. I want to know more about them. I wonder about them. And it seems that's something that happens naturally. I mean, I see my daughters, for example, the other day they wanted to go to the cinema to watch a movie about horses, and there's this horse rider hero, this young girl, and there's like you can get so many articles about this girl. And so yeah, like they see that, they see the girl, they see what she's doing, they like it, they want to know more about her. And it seems, yeah, that's what happens. And here, when we hear about Krishna, our curiosity awakens, and then at some point also our feelings, we develop feelings towards these persons. And then we get a chance, like, okay, if this, like any relationship that I have experienced at one point, there's time for clarifications, there's time for clearing withholds, time for weeding the garden of the heart. And so we can do that also with the Supreme Person, with Paramatma, or the creator of Paramatma. So my conclusion from preparing for this class was that actually by being in this process, or endeavoring to be on this spiritual path of Bhakti Yoga, I get to understand the nature of the Creator. I get to understand, and hopefully at one point fully realize, that he did not send me here into this prison, that this is a natural consequence, that he doesn't want me to suffer. He wants me to return home. He wants all of us to return home. And he's not leaving us alone. Like he made sure that okay, so he created the material world, the prison house. But he made sure, and he made sure that there are signposts everywhere, and taxis and emergency helicopters all around, in every corner of the world. And Suffering is here to wake us up. Hey, look out for the exit. Look for the signpost and follow it and take the exit. And Srila Prabhupada, he has this very strong urgency to wake us up, to get urgent about training us, training our whole system, like every cell, to feel comfortable under the supreme shelter and to feel comfortable in his unconditional love and experience that as safe, experience that as true, as real, as normal. Like, and the suffering and the material consciousness and the numbing, all the numbing we do, that we come to a place where we experience that as uncomfortable. That numbing is uncomfortable. Not experiencing is uncomfortable. So we are in a prison, and there are signposts to the exit. There's guidance to the exit. There's persons and symbols and so many things that show us here is the exit. Go there. And yet still we are in the prison. And also I have many conversations, and it's because it's a topic in my life, that even though I am in prison, I can still make it comfortable. I can still, like breathe consciously when there's fresh air. I can enjoy the warmth of the sunshine when there is a little sunshine here. I can taste when I have something wonderful like a fruit, or I can taste it. I can fill my body with oxygen while I'm up before the next wave comes, the next dive comes. I can nourish my body. Actually, I'm coming to the understanding it's not that only that I can nourish my body, but it is my responsibility to nourish my body, to take care of my health, so that I'm strong to do my sadhana. I'm strong enough to follow the signposts that lead to the exit. And we can start with one little thing, and it has big effects. Like I was sharing about deity worship, and the first deity that came into my house was Lord Jagannath. And actually, I'll end with this personal story. I was not into deity worship, and a friend of mine had deities, and she said, "Oh, I don't have they're not on my altar. They're sitting in a box in a cupboard, and they're looking for a place to go. Do you want them?" And I said, "No, I don't want deities. That's not what I want to do." And I was very clear, I don't want that. And then I was in a coaching session with Malini about my misery, and she asked me some coaching question: what's one thing that could help you experience less misery, more joy? And spontaneously what came to me, get Lord Jagannath. And I still it was just this probably Supersoul guidance that my whole system rebelled against. And still and Malini asked me, why not? And I was afraid of the responsibility and what it would mean for my life. And I came to the decision, okay, I will get Lord Jagannath, I will put him on my altar, and all I do is I will look at him once a day and I will say, life is like a piece of cake, to remind me that I don't need to take life so seriously. And so that's what I did. I got Lord Jagannath and put him on my altar, and all I did for a long time was look at him once a day and say, life is like a piece of cake. And it led to so many wonderful things, just this one thing. So I wanted to end with that as an encouragement for the next days. We can just do one little thing with the intention to come a little closer to Krishna, to God, to know him or to serve him, or even to, relieve our own life. in connection with God, that it's going to have a huge tsunami effect. Hare Krishna. I'll be glad to hear from you, questions or insights, or whatever is happening for you and that you would like to share. Rukmini wrote something in the chat. Cake, 3 cakes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Izzy.
Thank you so much for the class. I'm going to close the door. I hear the echo of somebody else in the house listening. Yeah, so I really liked the story that you ended with, your pastime with Lord Jagannath, how you started with something so simple. And I can so personally relate to like, oh, deities, no thanks. That's like too intense. And I really like to hear how it's even, I want to say like allowed. It's even like an option to have a very simple relationship with the deity or with Lord Jagannath. And something else that really stood out to me in what you were sharing, it was near the beginning of the class when you were talking about how it's so important having somebody that can communicate instructions in a way that the person receiving it can hear. My phone randomly gave me an article suggestion for, it was like a person who was trying to go through a car wash, and the assistant needed to instruct the person 5 times because they kept like trying to drive through, or they would press on the brakes and the machine was supposed to take the car on their own. And it like really highlighted how we're so incapable of like really helping one another, or like really coming up with our own solutions. Like you were talking about, there's so much speculation about, oh, do this thing, or news breaking, coconut oil is bad. No, news break, it's the best thing. Like you can have so many different opinions. And it just, yeah, something about it made it clear to me when you share that example of, oh yeah, we need somebody that's qualified to speak. And then the final thing that I want to share is how kind of this experience of me watching this like random video about a person in a car wash. It's like, oh, that could be like a wasted 30 seconds of my life. But then actually, as I listened to your class, it gave me like a practical insight in a way that I can understand this principle of needing somebody who is capable to communicate. And it's something that I've heard in class, how everything can be dovetailed into self-realization or Krishna consciousness. Even some random video about a lady having difficulty going through a car wash. So I really appreciate kind of like a micro realization of that principle. So thank you.
Thank you, Ide. So you created that dovetailing, and with the result that it wasn't a waste of time.
Hare Krishna.
Malini?
Hi Krishna, I really loved your class. And it's interesting that, because if I had something to share, so it was very complete. And when you spoke about the morning program, you say, oh, I don't know if it's, it's complete, but to me, it looks very complete. So I will say the same. To me, this class looked very complete, like, like us, where we are, our whole context, our realization that we really are connected with Krishna all the time, and we are servants of Krishna, and there is nothing we can do about that. and then the yearning, like, I want to know Krishna, I want to know his address, I want to know about his girlfriend, I want to know about everything. So I felt like it was such a balance of, and complete hearing your class. And I had personal realization during your classes about the beginning of the class, about the interdependence. And so the interdependence created by the supreme independent, like the supreme independence and the interdependence of all those, three principles and in the world. And before that, I was wondering, how do they connect with Adi Bhautika and Adi Daivika and Adi Atmaika, which are the threefold miseries that we learn, in some stuff, that of course, like the miseries that come from the mind and the body, the miseries that come from the demigods, the miseries that come from natural catastrophe. And I wanted to understand how they connected to, and I've been thinking about that for a few weeks. And then through your class, I just got, I understand now, is that the interdependence of all that material creation of Krishna's intelligence, our misery are going to come from any of those three. And that's where they come from. And that's because there is nothing else in our material consciousness. And then if we step up the material consciousness to finally acknowledge that we are with Krishna and that's who we are, then we step out of it to be connected with the supreme independence. So it really helped me connect all the dots that I have been endeavoring to connect for a few weeks. Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Malini. I'm not sure I understand what you understood. Like what I did get from your sharing your understanding that within this material context there's this dependency, and that's the suffering. The dependency is the suffering, and then there's the transcendence, the connection with God. And that can transform the suffering. I had an experience like that. I was having a lot of physical pains, and I had no other idea than to pray to God for relief. Take this pain away from me. And he didn't take the pain away from me. It just got more pain and new pain. And I started to pray for the spiritual intelligence to understand and to deal with the pain. And then the suffering went. The pain didn't go, but the suffering went. Oh. Thank you for sharing. Vladimir?
Oh, I want to, it's a world of misery, but we don't need to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Anandini. I also want to thank you for your class. You were saying, I love morning programs, and I was thinking, I love classes from Anandini. You have like something that always like soothes me so much. So that's very nice. And the point I especially like in this class was when you spoke how you were like trying to focus your mind on japa, and then you weren't feeling so successful. And then Paramatma told you that, well, you are connected with Krishna anyway. Like there is no separation just because of your mind is something else. So I thought it was very beautiful. It reminded me of one of the experience of like seminar that we had, and like where I really felt this constant question, like when will Krishna take me home? And then like knowing, no, I am at his home, like in a ways that like you are describing, like we are committed to not to see that. Oh, my mind is focusing on something else. Of course, I'm disconnected from Krishna, but we are not. So anyway, it's just like, it's like a balsam. What's balsam? I don't know if it's English word. Like oil, like ointment for the soul. And we also in Czech, we have the saying, how do you call into the forest? That's what's come back. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ladini, for sharing. I'm glad it was soothing.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Anandini. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thanks very much for your class. I was enlivened by each part of it, and for sure I appreciated your appreciation of the completeness of the morning program. And you chose just a few lines that, like, and I just got like each line of each song. And even you, because I might think of like, there's 5 songs Prabhupada gave morning program, some Saradava, Nrsingadev, prayers, Tulasi, the Tulasi songs, and Shri Guru Charana Padma and Jaya Radha Madhava. And I appreciated, he said, well, the Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada instituted that, that's part of the morning program. And just you chose a few lines from a few of the morning program songs, and each one can be opens to unlimited vistas and horizons. Also, I appreciated very much how you embellished, you enhanced the chariot analogy. And in your doing that, I was reminded there's a saying, right? If you don't have a plan for your life, someone else will. And so, and that the someone else will always be the horses of the chariot. I mean, sure, it might take the form of this employer or this family member, but it's always going to be the horses of the, if we're passive, that's what I got, if we're asleep or even awake, but passive, then the horses and the reins, the mind and the senses, they're going to have a plan for our life, which will pretty much always take us off the cliff or into a ditch or something like that. So I so much appreciated that, like, the opportunity and responsibility of the passenger is to wake up, and you emphasize, and waking up isn't enough, because I can wake up and I can just like, this is terrible. This is terrible. But to wake up and be assertive, inspired by higher guidance, inspired by guidance, who really knows what this chariot is for. And we wake up not just to see, this is a miserable, one horse is going this way, one horse is, we wake up and we're inspired by Supersoul, Paramatma, pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna in the heart, Chaitya Guru. We're inspired by guidance that really knows, here's the purpose of this car, here's the purpose of this chariot. And then we get assertive, and the spirit soul, guided by actual knowledge, directs the intelligence, who guides the reins and the horses to a truly worthy, sublime goal. So thanks for that. I got so much from it.
Thank you, dear Govinda.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? So I'll read the verse again. All 3 of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood, but the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.